Well, good morning, everyone. Can't hear you. There we go. Welcome to the third annual Lighting Up Recovery Breakfast at the Dove Point facility here in Salisbury. I'm Ernie Colburn. I'm on the board of directors and the immediate past president of the Recovery Resource Center. It's great to be here, and I have to tell you that this is the first time since I retired in April that I've worn a tie. It's the first time I've worn socks, shoes, real shoes, underwear, and a starched shirt. So it took something special for me to be here today. So here I am with my tie. Let's get things started with a blessing this morning for our breakfast. We'll call on Steve CLINE. Steve's recovery began 35 years ago. Since then, he's always reached out his hand to the newcomer, freely giving what he has been given to himself. His church isn't a building. It's anywhere there's a pot of coffee, two recovering people sharing their stories, where he's known as Humble Steve. Steve, please come forward.
I didn't realize that this was going to be this many people. When Pat snagged me a few weeks ago and asked me if I would do this, I thought it was going to be like a down over that. But anyway, I'd like to thank y'all for showing up. I'd like to thank Stuart for preparing this roadkill. It's over 35 years, and then this disease back in February took my son. So, anyway, this is special because I believe it's a disease, it's a family disease. But we're not here for that, we're here to enjoy Stuart's breakfast. So this morning I'm just going to say a prayer. What normally I say that I'm not normally used to speaking to this many people for eating. Now our heads, please. Okay, Heavenly Father, thank you for these people for showing up. Dear God, bless this food, use it for the nourishment of our bodies. In Jesus' name, amen.
Before I get into a little monologue, I want to talk about the Recovery Resource Center. I wanted to recognize right off the bat the staff that's there at the Recovery Resource Center. They increased the capacity by promoting Tracy Gregory to office manager and hosting 2 interns from Salisbury University, Alexandra Camper and Rashawn Seaborn. Betty Hartman and Sharon Sung complete the staff at the RRC, along with our great leader, Executive Director Beth Olson. Could you all please give them a big round of applause? They do a wonderful job, and Beth wrote most of the script, so if there's anything that's wrong, it's her fault. I'm just reading it. And actually, I'm going to talk to you about the state of recovery at the Recovery Resource Center, and I pretty much want to read this because there's so much material and information here that I think it's important to make sure that I don't forget anything by doing an ad-lib on it. So last year we announced our name change from Salisbury Substance Abuse Community Center to the Recovery Resource Center at this event. And my goodness, what a difference a year has made. The Recovery Resource Center still provides the bridge from treatment, an event, to recovery, a lifestyle, by providing a safe and welcoming space for 12-step groups to meet, so that the recovering person can learn to live without the benefit of alcohol and drugs. And why shouldn't we? There are grief support groups, there are divorce support groups, there are cancer support groups. Why not a support group for the person with a substance use disorder? The 12-step recovery fellowships are free to anyone who wishes to attend. There's no paper trail, there's no ID collected at the door, no insurance information is exchanged. If someone is asking themselves if they have a problem with alcohol or drugs, they can attend several meetings incognito, wear a baseball cap, sunglasses, or sit in the back, wear no underwear. to all who might be helpful and make an informed decision about the actions that you want to take. The 12-step program doesn't advertise their programs because a relapse can be seen as a failure of a 12-step recovery. And we've seen that with celebrities rather than the individual. The bad news is that the relapses do happen, and the good news is that recovery does work. 12-step recovery works. It is the only path. Often people don't seek help because they have the awareness of the opioid or the addiction epidemic. They're still ashamed of it, and we're going to be talking about that with Marty, our keynote speaker today. I remember when I first went into the program and walked into, my anniversary date is in February of '89, so I'm looking down around about 30 years. But I came in February when we were on the standard time. You know, it was dark for the 8 o'clock meeting, and I could sneak in, and I had my own little ego going because I had an entertainment business, and I was a well-known fixture in the community. So all worked well until daylight savings time came in, and I had to go in when it was daylight. And a couple of times I walked into what was my home group on a Monday night down in Oxford, right by the park, the church. And the church board was having a meeting there, and I knew 3 out of the 4 people standing outside on the church board. They said, "Ernie, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm going to a meeting downstairs." Oh. So we'll be talking about that today. Fortunately, there are 12-step fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, Eating Disorders Anonymous, on and on and on. All practice the principle of anonymity, so that the shame surrounding addiction doesn't surround those seeking recovery. We've learned that the words that we use do matter, and the words alcoholic and addict evoke shame. It is our mission to support recovering people on their journey to recovery and to advocate for them by dispelling that shame surrounding addiction and recovery. What a difference a year does make. Since our last breakfast, we've had a very active working board of directors, and I would like the board of directors to please stand and be recognized. Please give them a nice round of applause. We've increased the number of 12-step meetings to 47 a week. We're bilingual and continue to reach out to the Latino community to establish a permanent Spanish-speaking meeting. Added educational workshops for the recovery community by fostering partnerships with other area nonprofits and volunteers. We now offer Narcan and CPR training quarterly in participation with the Wycomico County Health Department and volunteers trained to teach CPR. As a matter of fact, I just went through CPR and AED certification, so you never know. And we've had instances where we've had to use those, unfortunately. Offer 6 weeks parenting classes in partnership with the Wycomico County Local Management Board several times a year. Facilitates stress management and communication workshops utilizing the skill of our board members. Offer an education and recovery workshop in partnership with Armand Foundation based in New Jersey. Are planning a Halloween meeting marathon to provide a safe party atmosphere for the newly and not so newly recovering persons. Are planning a sober, family-focused social event for the Christmas season. How do we provide that home for 12-step recovery and all the free workshops and events? How does the money work? Well, 10% of what we have at our disposal at the Recovery Resource Center is from the patrons that come to the center that pass through the door, and there are almost 47,000 to 48,000 of those a year. That's quite a number. 50% comes from corporations, foundations, and individuals who have made multi-year pledges. Our corporate sponsors are the Peninsula Regional Medical Center, the Purdue Foundation, Credit Plus, First Shore Federal, the Hazel Farm Property Foundation, the Richard A. Henson Foundation, and the Hershey Family Fund. If there are any representatives from those, if you see, please stand and let us give you a round of applause because you deserve it. 18% of our money comes from the United Way, which has been supporting us from the very beginning, and we're very appreciative of that. 22%, yes, give them a big round of applause. And the remaining 22% comes from people like you and fundraisers like this, so give yourselves a nice round of applause. As I said at the beginning, I retired back in April after 58 years in the workforce. I figured it was time to start giving back what I can give in somewhat. So it's enjoyable to be retired. The Lord did let me know that He's in charge and not me, and He said, you know, you're not going to skate on this, dude. I've inflicted you with a little bit of Parkinson's disease, and you'll have to live with that. Well, that's just a minor inconvenience, and we're moving forward. So if I get a little jittery in my voice and my left hand gets carried away, moving away from the rest of my body, don't pay attention. It's just normal. I want to bring up now Miles Weber to talk about one historic journey to recovery. Miles has been in recovery since 2008. The seeds of that recovery were planted when he was just 15 years old. As a direct result of his recovery, he's had the opportunity to return to his home in Delaware and to thrive. Miles Weber, please come forward and let's give him a nice round of applause as he shares his story.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm nervous. I'm grateful that the Recovery Resource Center asked me to come up and give you guys a little synopsis of my life story. I got a lot to say. But with that being said, I'm going to try to talk. I'm going to try to keep it cool. I'm going to try to slow down a little bit. And just put your seatbelts on and hang on, because it's going to be an adventure, we'll say that. So you know what? I'm 28 years old right now. I grew up in a great family. You know, my mom worked for a lawyer in Salisbury for most of her life. I'm not going to say lawyer because there might be some stipulations going on here, I don't know. But she provided well. You know, my father, he's a mechanic, he provided well. Like the whole life, like I grew up in a great household, you know, and with that being said, like everything I've been through, you know, there's no discrimination on what an addict and alcoholic looks like. But like there's no discrimination, like, you know, it's open to anybody and everybody, and like I'm grateful. So, I caught my first charge in middle school for malicious destruction on a mailbox. I made a contraption and I blew it up. Yeah. I was 15, I was a little kid, right? So they knew drugs were involved, and they suggested that I went to these meetings at the Recovery Resource Center, formerly known as the SAC Center. So, okay, so I went to 2 of them, but I couldn't identify. I was in denial. Following that, 30-something charges later, and somewhere around 10 felony possession with the intent to distribute charges, I was never convicted. And I cannot confirm nor deny, you know, any of my involvement in any of these situations, because we're just going to let that one go. So anyway, I can't confirm nor deny my involvement in them. But however, the day finally came when I was ready to admit that I had a problem. After everything I'd gone through, I could finally admit, alright, like when I was like, you got a problem, right? Something's going on. So, you know what, like I knew where to come because like these people had planted a seed in me. Like the people at the RRC Center, the SAC Center back then, they planted the seed, man, they're like, you know, we do recover. You know, it doesn't matter where you've been, what you've been through, like whatever you're going through, it's okay. Like, you're not a bad person, you don't have a moral deficiency, but you have a disease, and we're here to help you treat it. So, I dropped out of school when I was 16 to go to the Jackson unit in Cumberland, Maryland. It was a lovely facility. I went there for 6 days, and they helped me get my GED. Okay, great, I got the GED, so I got it. I did the inpatient treatment, I did counseling, I did meetings, but I still wasn't ready. But the seed was planted from the SAC Center when I started, it started to sprout, right? So, following that, the reason I went there was because I was driving and I got a DUI in Delaware when I crashed my car. I was 16 years old. My parents gave me a car and I crashed it drunk, right? So I crashed into a field and there's a farmer, alright? So the farmer, he comes and he's got a pitchfork, alright? I'm on the ground, I didn't know what was going on, I was so wasted. And he's standing with his pitchfork, he's on the phone, and so I started to plead with him. I said, come on man, I said, I will fix your fence, help me flip my car over, man, I gotta go. I just knew, I was like, I have got to get out of here, like, this is bad, very bad, so I have got to get out of here. So, with that being said, he didn't help me flip my car over, I didn't fix his fence, and the ambulance showed up, the police showed up, and I blacked out, and I woke up handcuffed to a hospital bed at PRMC. Lovely. Alright, so, I've been on probation in the state of Maryland and Delaware since I was 15 years old, and yet all my probation officers, somehow, in the courts, they somehow made miracles continue to happen in my life. I can't explain it. I don't think many people can. Like, all the charge, all the sleepless nights I caused my family, all the pain, the isolation, the degradation, the loneliness, just everything. But, like, I can't understand how these miracles continue to happen in my life. But you know what, like, after DUI, it didn't end. After my stint in Jackson, I came out and I did what I always did. I still wasn't ready. I kept getting weeks and weeks in these lovely gated communities. WCDC, SCI, they're lovely, right? It's a gated community, alright. And I wasn't ready. So a year later, I called my last charge. In 2008, I called my last charge. Alright? And I was held up at gunpoint in Delaware with 2 guys in their vehicle, and somehow I was able to tuck and roll out of the vehicle going 40 miles an hour. Poor me. I got out of it, thank God, I'm grateful. So I got out, right? So I'm rolling across the road. I didn't know what was going on. I was wasted, whatever I was, who knows. I'm rolling across the road, and a police officer threw his lights on. There was a cop coming the opposite way. I had to jump out of the road. He almost ran me over. I got out of the road real quick. So I ran off into the woods. He went and he pulled the car over, and then they got what they did. They got charged with armed robbery and all this other stuff. And then me, I got found later on that night still running from the police, and I caught my last possession charge, my last paraphernalia possession charge. Even though I was up at gunpoint, I still got a charge because I was still in the wrong regardless. So with that being said, so once again I ended up at SCI again. All right. So that was enough. I was 18 years old. My successful sister, she got a hold of me when I got out of SCI, and she said that she had been working and planning with the courts and my probation officers. She offered me to move to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where she lived, to go to a school to work with myself. I was like, great, school? I was like, yeah, work on me? Like, all right. So come to find out, in other words, it was another rehab. I talked to my it was a rehab to work on me, all right? It was lovely. It was on the beach in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, you can't go wrong, right? So anyway, I talked to my probation officer, and she said, all right, my Maryland probation officer, she said, all right, she said, if I go and get my life together, then I should probably stay out of Maryland for quite some time. But she would write my probation off. She said, if I get out of the state, she will write me off, like, darn. I was like, yo, like miracles, or once again, just the miracles continue to happen. Alright, so that happened. So my Delaware probation officer, alright, so then I go to my Delaware PO, I said, alright, listen, this is what's going on, Maryland's gonna write me off, blah, blah, blah. She said, alright, she said, if you take, my license was revoked, obviously, DUI, 16. She said, alright, she said, if you go there, if you clean your life up, she said, if you take these classes, if you do this, that, and the other, you pay these fines, you give us this, you give us that, you dedicate all your time to this, we'll give your license back. I was like, great, this sounds awesome. So I did it, I did everything. So with that, regardless, it was like ding, 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 opportunity. Right, so I took the opportunity, I jumped on, and I finally had the gift of desperation that I heard about. I heard by these meetings this gift of desperation. I finally had it. I was desperate. I was willing. I was willing to go to any lengths to, because I was tired of hurting. So I went to Fort Lauderdale, and I did a detox for a week, which transitioned into a 30-day inpatient treatment, which also transitions into a halfway house where I stayed for 6 months. The same kind of meetings that had been introduced to me when I was an adolescent, when I was 15 years old from the SAC Center, is where I went, because now I can identify. Now I knew I could identify. There was no more identifying. I was identifying. I could really, I understood what they're saying. When they're talking about the pain, the loneliness, the isolation, the desperation, the fear, just everything they go through, the hordes of active addiction, I could finally relate. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I finally fit in. I finally found where I fit in. Because I thought I was the black sheep of my family for my entire life. My mom's, she works for a lawyer. My dad's this awesome mechanic. My sisters are both, graduations, they're all smart, and then my brother's my brother, and then there was me, right? And then there was me, and I was the black sheep of my family, right? But guess what? I found my herd in recovery. At the SAC Center, at the RRC Center, I finally found my herd, man. I found where I fit in. So here we go. So, through a 12-step fellowship that the SAC Center had introduced me to, I finally found freedom from my actions and myself from my active addiction and my self-imposed prisons. I was finally free. So, guess what? By doing the next right thing, it all worked itself out. I never knew that life was this good because I ran from it for so long. I'm caught in the horrors of active addiction. All of my family, by being clean in this halfway house, by living in recovery, my family started to trust me again. I was being a productive member of society. I was no longer on the outskirts. I wasn't that person that you were telling your children not to hang out with anymore. I wasn't that guy that, that you stay away from him. Because I was that guy. and I'm just grateful. So I had a job. I rented an apartment, and I was finally becoming a responsible, productive member of society. I was no longer just another number on a cell block. Thank God. I got my license. I got my motorcycle's license, right? Because I found a hobby that I enjoyed. I rode dirt bikes as a kid. Good old Eastern Shore thing, riding dirt bike. So I got my motorcycle license. Now I got a car, I got a motorcycle, and I've been upgrading to bigger and faster motorcycles. When I was 22 years old, April 12th, 2012, with 3 years clean and sober, I was riding a 2006 GSXR 1000. I was on a highway in 595 in Plantation, Florida, which had construction. I don't remember anything, but I crashed. Alright? I did this sober. I crashed sober. I was clean and sober for 3 years, and I crashed my motorcycle. I was in a coma for a month. My brain was bleeding. My jaw was broken. And they stapled my brain shut. They bolted my jaw together while I was in a coma. I woke up a month later. I had no idea what happened. I couldn't speak right, I couldn't walk, so through making frantic hand gestures, they told me that I was in rehab. But I had remembered that I was an addict in recovery, and I couldn't make sense of it. I have a traumatic brain injury. But I stayed sober, I didn't have to relapse, no matter what. I found out that we don't have to use no matter what, because recovery works. And so my family was there to support me, and they helped me so much. After 6 months inpatient rehab, learning how to be alive again, I graduated. My job in a Florida rehab had waited for me. For 2 years, I was on my own, but I had an awakening. I wanted an education and to be close to my immediate family because my sister had been promoted, which took her to Atlanta doing some big CPA stuff. She was a valedictorian at SU. She was a major CPA. So she's in Atlanta now doing big things, alright? So my other sister, she's an RN working at PRMC for years. And she moved away with her husband. My brother has a traumatic brain injury from a car accident when he was taking me to my Delaware probation officer. We're on Route 9, it started to rain, we got in an accident. He was in a coma for 3 months. My brother, he can't work, he can't drive, he can never live on his own again. He has a severe traumatic brain, severe. But the thing is, God saw fit to spare our lives. Because today he's home with us, and once again, then there was me. I moved here for my education, and today I'm at Delaware Tech pursuing this. Today I'm at Delaware Tech pursuing this idea I'd come to become an electronics engineer. I dropped out of high school and got my GED when I was 16 years old, and I have a brain injury. and yet I'm halfway through my degree towards becoming an electronics engineer. I like that slow clap. Did you hear that? So anyway, with that being said, like so much is happening at school. I have my car is wrapped, like I'm at Delaware Tech, my car is wrapped in their Deltec logo. Like I'm a college nerd and I love it. I go to school 4 days a week. You know, I work for the school. I do new student. I'm wearing a shirt right now. I do new student orientations. I'm a student mentor. I'm helping people in school, like the new students. I help them. I'm part of the community today. I'm no longer looked down upon. I'm no longer frowned on. You know, people want me around their kids today. You know, I watch my nieces and nephews. Like I'm a part of. You know. So I do part-time work there. And this week, I do part-time work there. I got a scholarship. I made the dean's list. And this week, I was just elected as the president of the Student Government Association. Yeah. My slogan was, you know, if you want smiles, you'll vote for Miles. I got all the votes, right? So I'm gonna make Deltec great again. I'm getting close, I'm wrapping up, right? So in a year or so, I'll be an electronics engineer. In November, I'll be celebrating 9 years clean and sober. Thank you, it warms my heart. So I stand here today to tell you I've never had it so good. This is coming from the juvenile delinquent. Some of you guys might be in here, listen. I might be talking to you, so listen. Alright, I was a juvenile delinquent, which means COs, POs, judges, doctors, lawyers, state's attorneys. I mean, everybody. They told me, Miles, you will never be anything if you keep living how you're living. They said, you are nothing. I was this big. And today I stand here and tell you, like, we do recover. You know, so regardless, there might be that one person in your life that, you know, and we do recover because RRC showed me how to. I'm an engineer with a brain injury who dropped out of high school in 10th grade, and I'm exceeding in my studies because I'm sober. I hope some of you remember me from the past because I stand here to tell you today that we do recover. Lost dreams awaken and new possibilities arise. Don't give up on the ones that just can't get it, because that was me. I just couldn't get it. There was no way. I just couldn't get it. Don't give up on them. It's possible. I love my life on the shore today. I'm so grateful for everything that's happened. I'm a part of the community. You know, I'm making some major moves. I'm just so grateful. I'm part of the community. I'm here to stand and tell you that, like, we do recover and, like, it's possible. I was on WBOC. I want to sing as my scene. I was on WBOC. I was downtown to get my haircut, and they found me down there. They're like, yo, they're like, it's a state of emergency on an opiate and heroin addiction. What do you think? I said, well, what a coincidence. I said, I got a lot to say. So I gave them the breakdown, and you know, they only put this much on there, but I'm WBOC famous, and before that, I was on the other one, was it WMDT, or whatever, some other news station I was on, asked about the weather. It was cold, it was real cold, and some kind of storm was coming, like, yo, the weather is really cold, blah, blah, what do you think? I said, I got something to tell you. So once again, I gave them the breakdown. I said, listen, I said, if it's cold, I said, if you got animals, man, especially cats, like, if you have cats, like, grab your cats and stay warm. And they cut it out. They didn't think it was so funny. They're like, nah. They're like, I can't put that in there. I'm like, but anyway, WMDT, WBOC, Deltec, I mean, you name it, I've been there, man. I'm a part of the community. Like, I'm here to stand and show you guys that, like, we do recover. But, like, no matter what you're going through in life, man, like, we do recover. And please just believe in the next person who can do it. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and thank you for listening to me. My name is Miles. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very, very much. Well, as I said earlier, we're supported by the United Way, which has been supporting the Recovery Resource Center since our very beginning. And one of the aspects of our United Way dollars is through accountability, through measurables. And our community, we do a community impact survey every year, and we found that there is a direct correlation between meeting attendance and long-term recovery. And it affirms that finding every single year. On group support, it's essential, which is why there were, as I said, 47,000 visits to the Recovery Resource Center last year. That's a whole lot of recovery going on that doesn't make the news. The RC, there's help, there's hope, and it's free. And please, with the help of you in the room this morning, we can keep it that way. Now I'd like to call on our keynote speaker, Marty Boldin. Marty is a respected addiction scientist, an award-winning social work professional, and an activist for the American Recovery Movement, focusing on the impact of addiction stigma on people in long-term recovery. He's also a person in long-term recovery, having battled from both depression, alcohol, and drug misuse. He lives in New Hampshire with his family, where he continues to work to find effective alternatives and solutions to those affected by substance use disorders, mental illness, and their families. Give a nice warm welcome, Marty Boldin.
So I want to say thank you for having me come here, and I also want to appreciate Miles' story again. I think it's a remarkable thing when people stand up and tell the truth. So I just want to say thank you. And I also want to thank Ernie for letting me know the importance of underwear choices in Maryland. Act differently next time. I also want to take just a moment for us all to just collect around the depth of Steve's message and the power of this disease, the way it impacts all of us. And one of the reasons I love the work I do, and I love the field that I work in, is that there are these juxtaposed emotional experiences that we have, where we can see somebody who, you know, beyond all reason, was given an opportunity to excel and become an important and valued member of our community, and in the same breath understand that countless lives have been taken from us unnecessarily. So I'm here to talk about a bunch of stuff, but mostly addiction stigma, and so let me kind of see if I can roll into that and then give you a little bit of background on it. So my name is Marty Boldin. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and to me that means that I've been sober since October 5th of 1987. So next week sometime I'll be celebrating 30 years of recovery, and I just want to say one thing about that, is that there are people who've been sober considerably less time than I have who lead much better lives, and people who've been sober longer than me that their sobriety is not something I want. I really do think of this as a daily reprieve. I think of this as something that we need to wake up grateful for every day. Because like Steve, and my own experience is that this disease has killed people I love, people better than me, people who deserve to get better much more than I did. And my own recovery journey started before I stopped using alcohol and other drugs. As a matter of fact, I really can't tell you where my recovery journey actually started, because I really have no recollection of life without alcohol or drugs. And that was actually a gift for me. The word alcoholic was so commonly used in my background. I promise you this is true. I thought alcoholic was just what you became when you could drink enough. And I, like my friend Miles, or maybe possibly even a little bit more dubiously, I was the bad kid from the bad family, from the bad side of town. Nice girls would date me to piss off their parents. I really had no aspiration, I had no real aspiration to do anything good because very few people saw any value in me at all. The only thing I did have going for me was I had a minor high school athletic career, which for me ended unceremoniously when I started my criminal justice career. And at that point, I think I really, my biggest aspiration was I grew up outside of New York City. I wanted to be a criminal. That was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a gangster. And I come from an Irish Catholic neighborhood, and the people that run that corporation in my part of the world are not from that particular ethnicity, so there are going to be limitations. But I got to know the drug trade pretty quickly, and I figured out real fast that the real money was not in the using of drugs, but in the distribution of drugs. Unfortunately, I miscalculated that using drugs and dealing with at the same time was not a very successful career path. And so for me, I can tell you, I was not bothered by the consequences that bother most normal folks about alcoholism or drug addiction, like getting fired from jobs or having people look down on me or getting thrown out of school or thrown off teams or thrown out of people's houses, all that stuff. I mean, I tell you the truth. I was really 12 years old before I figured out that the cops didn't come to everybody's house for Christmas. And so my own personal story had this unique blend of my biological parents suffered from addiction, so essentially they left me at the babysitters and didn't come out and then come back, and then I was raised in foster care. My foster mom belonged to what I like to call the Alcoholic of the Month Club, and I had every kind of abuse that could happen to a small person growing up, and the only thing I did was I kept breathing. And so for me, I really had no problem even being confronted. You know, my friends were people impacted by alcohol misuse and drug misuse, and my friends would come up to me and say to me, "Man, you got this bad." And I feel really good about that. I feel really proud, like I was the worst of all my friends. And so I remember, like, when people come to me and say stuff to me about it, it didn't really bother me. And I really thought I had a handle on it. I was kind of okay. You know, there was a career path there. I'd like to do a little bit of time in jail, and then I'd come out and go back and forth. And that was just the way it was going to be. Because I thought I knew what addiction was. I had seen it from the outside. I dabbled with some of the minor consequences of addiction, and that seemed to be stuff I could stand up to, but to make a long story short, in my early 20s, the deeper nature of addiction came to bear on me. So I graduated from college before I went to rehab, which is good news and bad news. The good news is I graduated with honors. The bad news is that I really don't remember anything from the last 2.5 years I was in college. But I could read and I could write, but toward the end of my addiction, and I need to say this, I was not sober a moment of the day for the last 18 months of my active use. As a matter of fact, withdrawal would wake me up in the middle of the night. And I was okay with all that, but then I started to get terrified. Now, some people in this room are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Others, if you don't, you're lucky. But I was afraid of everything, all the time. Nothing could make me feel safe, nothing could get me inebriated. And the only way I knew how to interact with other people was basically terrorize them. And I couldn't make that feeling go away. So I'd gone to college, I'd studied what it was like to have mental illness. I was pretty sure I had it. And so when people started talking to me about going to rehab, I didn't go to rehab to get sober. I went to rehab because I knew I was really crazy. I was afraid somebody was going to find out how crazy I was and put me away forever. So I remember being in rehab. I was there about 2 weeks. And back then there were rehabs available for lots of people, even me. And the rehab was divided. Half the rehab was adults, the other half was adolescents, but there was a group of us between 18 and 25 that even though they couldn't put us with the kids, we were mostly like 7 years old. So they put us in our own little group. We had the worst counselor of the whole rehab. She was terrible. Everybody was terrible. And so one day, At the end of treatment, I ran up to her in the parking lot, and I'm pretty sure that she thought I was going to try to carjack her. She was pretty terrified. And I said, listen, I've just had this experience of conscience, and I got to tell you the truth. I don't use alcohol or drugs anymore, but I think I'm crazy. I think my real problem is I'm crazy. And this terrible counselor said the words that saved my life. She said, it's funny you should say that, Mark, because we just had a meeting about you, and you might be right. And I guess that she said the next thing, because she just wanted to go home and get some pizza and eat some terrible counsel. She said, why don't you just try staying sober for a second and see if it gets better? Now, she was probably saying that to me because she just didn't want me to, like, steal her car. But I actually felt some hope in that. And that's what really kept me sober for about the first year and a half. And I can tell you this, that I've never felt as bad as I did in the weeks and months before I got sober. And it did take me a long time to kind of collect my faculties. But through that process, and through people like people in this room, I've kind of cobbled together a pretty good life. And so I was at this great job. That was a great job. I was a political appointee for life, doing counseling work, making 6 figures on top of the pension. I was a department head of municipal government, which meant that basically I would be able to just hang out and not do very much. And that was good. But then this thing happened in my recovery, and I won't go into this in deep detail, but a woman I was married to died from cancer. And if you've never had that experience, I hope it never falls on you. But if you have had that experience and you've lost someone close to that terrible disease, it is game-changing. And so what I decided to do, because I've done about everything you can do in the field of counseling, from being a counselor, working in halfway houses, to manage a program, being on advisory committees and all that stuff. The one thing I hadn't done was I hadn't become an academic. And I noticed that there's a big distance between what we study in the academy and the way it plays out in the field. There's a huge disconnect. The studies that we read, and I just wanted to be better at what I did. So I went and got myself a fellowship to this place called Boston University. And I went to study to get my PhD in social work. And in that process, I started becoming really interested in this issue of stigma. So I'm going to tell you a few things about stigma that are really important to understand. And the first thing is that we don't really understand it very well. I read, I don't know, a couple, maybe 10, 12,000 pages about stigma, about everything that's out there to read on it, all the reports that come out. And I know some of the world's leading researchers in this topic, and the one thing we can agree upon is that there is no agreed-upon definition about it. The reason I say this to you is because we are in an interesting moment in this field. The opioid addiction crisis, whatever it's called, epidemic, has focused people on this field at a national level. And for those of you who feel like this will never happen again, I've been around in this field for a long time, it will happen again. There will be another crisis. But right now, lots of people are paying attention to it, including the gentleman who lives on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And so we have a microphone. Like Miles said, people coming up trying to find us in barbershops. That was good. I heard that cool. And what happens is, as we start to speak out loud about this disease, we don't speak with one voice. And we use words out there that can confuse the public. And one of the words that's confusing is stigma. Because when we tell people to stop stigma, they really don't know what that means. And I can promise you this, because I've done this already, the group's bigger than you. I can ask all of you, write down the experience you had with stigma, and it would fall into several different kinds of experiences. I think a more artful way to address issues related to stigma in our community is to look at issues of discrimination and stereotyping. Right? Miles' entire speech is a stereotype-defying monument to the power of recovery. And my guess is that there are several people in this room that bust all the stereotypes that we have about addiction. The reason stereotype is so important to look at when we consider stigma is that addiction is a complicated equation. We have some ideas about what causes addiction in people, but but I can tell you that science is far from complete. We have some ideas about what it means to be a person with alcohol or other drug use disorder, but that definition is far from universal. I've seen enough patients over the course of my clinical career to tell you that there are two people who will come in with the exact same set of circumstances and see themselves in wildly different ways. And one of the reasons, we've talked a little bit this morning to 12 steps and the value of 12 steps, those gentlemen were brilliant in many, many ways. One of the powerful things about attraction rather than promotion in that model, one of the powerful things in the 12-step tradition when it says you're an alcoholic when you say you are, is that that completely avoids controversy about what it means to have substance use disorder or not. Whether or not you're a real alcoholic going to the 12-step meeting or not is between you and your sponsor, maybe not even your sponsor. But the rest of us that are on this place where part of our lives is lived in anonymity, working in traditions of the 12-step program, and some of us are out loud about that. When we start to talk about stigma and the impact of stigma, we should be clear about three things. So for those of you that don't have great memories or note takers, there are three really important things you need to know about stigma. The first one is that while we don't know how to tell somebody what it is, people who experience stigma know when it happens. They know when it happens. I have a large group of people in recovery around me with a vast background in a variety of different spheres of influence. And one of the things that's amazing to me is when somebody who comes to me, who I see as being extraordinarily powerful, says to me, I can't say anything where I work. And I say, like, you own the company. When I see somebody who I look up to as a mentor and somebody who guides me through life, and they say, yeah, my brothers and sisters don't know I'm in recovery. People feel it. And because people feel it, the second thing you need to know about stigma is that it deeply impacts the way people interact with getting help. And one of the things that's really intense about that is that we know through a lot of studies that stigma prevents people from actually seeking any kind of help. Be that peer-based recovery supports, be that 12-step meetings, be that professional help, whatever is out there. The feeling of experiencing stigma, right, that stops people from getting help. And this is the part that really gets me going. Because one of the places that people identify feeling stigma the most is in places where they do get help. And those experiences make people leave treatment early. So we know people feel it. We know that it prevents people from getting help. We know that people leave help early. Oh, and then we also know something that everybody knows, that depending on the community's appetite to address this issue out loud, that directly reflects the types of resources that they put in place to help people that have recovery, that have a desire for recovery. And so what that means is that every community everywhere has a way of dealing with alcohol and other drug misuse. Right? For some people, you kind of go away. Right? I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in my life when their children go to rehab. The children didn't go to rehab, they went for a vacation somewhere for a while. You know what I'm talking about. Right? And then there's other communities that adopt and are out loud and open about this. And one of the things that's necessary, I believe, for that to happen is that we, people who have stature in the community, who have identified ourselves as being community contributors, we need to be thoughtful about the way we speak out loud and break the stereotypes among our friends and partners. And the reason I say this to you is because the stakes here are grave. People ask me all the time, besides what is addiction, people ask me, like, what works? And I'm going to tell you something, for those of you like, 12-step models, or like to study things called evidence-based practices, or, other people find support faith-based traditions. There are a myriad of ways that people seek help. Some people just go see the doctor and take a drug, right? But here's the trick. Nothing that's out there works for everybody all the time. Nothing that's out there works for everybody all the time. And so the reason that this is important is that even though my recovery tradition saved my life, I believe in it deeply. It is the center of my social life. It is an extended family for me because of the way I grew up. I have to recognize that if I'm going to be working in this field and advising about it, I need to understand what makes recovery work everywhere. And so I'm going to tell you what 4 years of study and a PhD program and growing up in addiction my whole life has taught me. Like the one thing I know, this is the one thing I know until I learn the next thing, but here goes. Ready? Recovery is indigenous. And while certain programs work well in different places, every place has its own flavor of recovery. And the reason that's important is because what happens to us when we work in this field is we have a tendency to not engage with natural resources in our community, people that know how to get sober, stay sober, find productive lives in that community. When Miles was talking before about being the student council president, I don't know how his recovery plays out loud, but if his recovery plays out loud at the school, when they have a meeting about what are we doing about X, Y, and Z, the opiate crisis or the next crisis, something like that, they're going to call Miles. And one of the mistakes that happens in Miles is Miles develops the Orange Shirt program. And people come flying to the Orange Shirt program. And all of a sudden somebody at, I don't know, Salisbury University says, oh, I've heard about this Orange Shirt program. They go and they study it. We survey Miles. He's digging this, right? We interview him. We write papers about him. And then we go down to Washington, D.C. We're gonna take the Orange Shirt program and put it all over the country. And we start doing that. And all of a sudden we figure out like the Orange Shirt program doesn't work as well in other places as does Salisbury University. And the reason why is because no matter how smart we are as academics, one thing that we forget when we study these programs is Miles. Because Miles may be the orange shirt, or maybe have nothing to do, even wear a green shirt might be just as helpful. And so you, individually, you got here to eat these humble victuals this morning and to talk to your neighbors, you're the recovery program. And the degree to which you express yourself in your local community about this directly contributes to the recovery capital that exists in your community. Now, you don't have to be like me. Get up, go all over the country, all over the world, talk about terrible childhood and how you were saved by your recovery. You don't have to do that in front of a microphone or in front of a newspaper. You don't need to do that. But the reason I come and I give this conversation is that I just ask you to think about who and how you disclose what you know about recovery, how that gets out there. Because that's a vital resource. We have this terrible survey we do every year at the federal government. You're not listening too carefully. It's called the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. We've been giving it since 1970. Every year, 70,000 people basically, give or take, answer a whole bunch of questions. And from that, we deduced that about 1 in 10 adults, and by the way, this is consistent for the last 40 years, right? So remember that next time you're about an epidemic. About 1 in 10 adults has a substance use problem. Now, there are 4 major problems with this data. I'm going to talk about them real quick because, it's important to do that. One is that the data is not collected from anybody who's homeless. The second one is that it's not collected from anyone in the criminal justice system. The third one is that it is all based on self-report. And on those 3 points alone, that number 1 in 10 is soft. The other thing I'm going to say here, I don't know how to play, but it's the truth, so I'm going to speak in honor of Miles, is that it's a terrible study because it's done on something called cross-sectional data. And for those of you who don't want to get a PhD, this is what that means. It means every year we ask a different 70,000 people those questions. And if we are going to ever know anything about this disease, we need to have what's called a longitudinal study, where we take 50, 100, 200, 300,000 people and study them over decades. And that costs money. Sometimes that's not popular with people, but I'm going to tell you something. It's the way that we will actually move the needle on this disease from a research perspective. But with that data, We also know that while 1 in 10 adults, a soft number, needs problem, we know that we only have help for 1 in 10 of those adults. That means 90% of people who are out there with the problem, whether they want help or not, are not going to have help available to them. The cost of substance use disorder in this country is $500 billion annually. In my state, it's $2.36 billion annually, and that's against our conservative state budget of $6 billion a year. Roughly half of the money that is paid for all state services is countervailed by the money that we spend treating addiction in hospitals, jails, and in lost employment. This is not just a public health crisis, this is an economic crisis, of disastrous proportions. That is, again, disproportionate to the United States versus just about any other country in the world. We have higher levels of substance use disorder in this country than virtually any other country in the world. And so what I'm saying to you is this: people are dying waiting for us to figure out what to do. Now, when Jenny got sick, and they did not find her cancer until it was inoperable and incurable, a wall of people came to my aid. Doctors, hospitals, right? A wall of people came to stand up behind me and my family. There's no shame, there's no stigma. Moms in the neighborhood were cooking meals for my kids. Everybody was there. How many people suffer from this disease in isolation? What is our call to do something about that? These are questions for you to think about. I was working on a PhD, and I was in my last class about a year ago. Driving back. Anybody here been to Sturo Drive in Boston during rush hour? It's a mess. Just sit there forever. It's a lifetime. And the phone rang. I said, "Hi, this is Marty." Person on the other end of the phone said, "Hi, my name's Chris Sununu." And I said, "The same Chris Sununu who's running for governor in New Hampshire?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." He said, "I want to talk to you about addiction and recovery." I said, "Okay." So we talked for about 10 minutes. Now, for those of you who don't know New Hampshire politics, Chris Sununu is a Republican, from a long family of Republicans. So the third thing I said to him was, I said, "Hey, not for nothing, Chris," because back then I got to call him Chris. I was like, "Not for nothing, but you know I'm a Democrat, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And we kept talking. You don't know the governor, he's very chatty on the phone. And so about 40 minutes later, I said, because we were starting to really talk, I said, "You understand, I am an active, liberal Democrat. Like, I had worked actively against people from your party getting elected for a long time." And he said, "Yeah, I know that, Marty, but there are some issues that are bigger than partisan politics." This is because that conversation turned into him and me phone dating for about 3 months, and then he offered me a job. And I remember saying to my wife, I was like, "Man, I think he's going to offer me a job." And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, can I take a job if he offers it to me?" And my wife said, "If he offers you this job, you can't not take it." And so, in February of this year, I became the governor's senior policy advisor on prevention, treatment, and recovery. And the only reason I'm telling this to you is because there are 3 things you need to know about my position. If I'm not, I'm pretty sure I am, but I haven't done a survey yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only openly recovering person in a position like this in the country. I'm also a social worker. So that's like a double whammy, but I'm openly a social worker too. And I'll tell you this, that this man has listened to me about everything. Everything that I've said to him, he's not said no to me about anything I've said to him. I haven't said like crazy stuff to him, like stuff that I know wouldn't work or would put him in a politically impossible situation. Right, but the things that we're trying to do in our state to make this, to move the needle on this, I've never met anybody more engaged in it. And the only reason I say that is because one of the reasons I left my job to go get a to go get a PhD was because I kind of had it with the stupidity of politics. And when I found a politician who spoke about the right thing, and he ain't running the state or anything else, but I'm just telling you, when I found a politician who was about the right thing, I hung on to him, like they say in the first chapter of the book, I know, like the dying hang on to a life preserver. I hung on to him, God's back. I give him the best thinking I can all the time, because that's one thing I can do to help our community. And I'm going to go back and finish my PhD at some point, but for right now, this is where I put my chips on the table. The second reason I tell you this is that when I started, I was in his office on February 28th, and we had a terrible couch in his office, because we had very small government, terrible furniture in New Hampshire, and very terrible couch, and he was sitting in his chair, and he was talking about something. I kind of lost track. The sun was shining bright through the window in New Hampshire in February. It gets cold up there, so whenever I leave, just this moment hit me. It's like, oh my. I'm advising the chief executive of the state on an issue that means more to me than life itself. And at that same moment, I remember, Miles, this is for you. I remember being 15 years old, and I was the first kid out of my gang to get arrested by adult cops. And I remember sitting in the back of the police car, and all my friends were looking at me, and I was smiling because I was so proud, because I was about to start my life in crime. And so what I'm saying to you is, from the time I was 15 to the time I was 54 was a long, incomprehensible journey for me. I can tell you a few things about me that you need to know. I'm married again. My wife loves me. When I come through the door, my wife, my children are happy to see me. I am an honored and valued advisor at the highest levels of industry and government in this field. I have friends who I lay down in traffic for and who do the same thing for me. Those are just a smattering of the gifts that my life in recovery has given me. So I think it would somehow be dishonest and certainly at least duplicitous and terribly ungrateful if I do not do the best I can with whatever's in front of me to make this journey possible for other people. And so when I got up yesterday morning and drove 300 miles around the state of New Hampshire before I got on a plane and drove 150 miles down here, I thought to myself, man, how lucky am I? How lucky am I to be surrounded by a room of people who have the same vision, the same mission, the same desire. I'm deeply honored and grateful to be here with you today, and I wish you Godspeed in your journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate it very much. It's great to be in a room with a group of recovering individuals. Those of you that aren't in recovery certainly are aware of those that are, and you get it. My greatest fear is 10 or 15 minutes from now, I've got to walk out that front door and deal with a whole world full of screwed up people going around disguised as normal. Think about that. I'd like to call up Beth Olson. She wants to do some recognition. Beth?
I have a tough act to follow. I'm here to honor some people for what they have done in the field of recovery. But before I do that, I'm going to do what I love to do, and I'm going to tell you a story. And it's a very short story, but it explains why we do what we do. There was an old man who slept at the edge of a village. He got up at his normal time, just above at sunrise, and faced the sun to do his morning devotions. As he was kneeling and praying, he heard hurried footsteps behind him. He turned and he saw a young man whose chest was heaving from the exertion of running across the field. And the young man spoke to him and said, "Master, Master, where is it?" And the old man just looked at him. The young man said, "Last night I had a dream, and in my dream I saw a wise man, a holy man at the edge of the village, and he gave me a jewel. Where is it?" And the old man said, "Oh, you must mean this." He knelt down and picked up a ruby the size of a fist from behind a clump of grass and handed it to the young man and said, "Here it is. I don't really remember how I came upon it. I have no use for it. It's yours." The young man took the ruby and held it up to the sun and watched it change colors. He became hypnotized. He took the ruby home and set it on the table in his house. He pulled his one chair up to the table and stared at the ruby lovingly and longingly all day long. When he got bored, he picked it up and stroked it and caressed it because he loved it. And he put it back. And at sunset, he went to bed. He didn't sleep. He tossed and turned all night long. And in the morning, he took the ruby and went running across the field again to find the old man. And when he found the old man, he said, "Master, Master, I don't want this." And the old man looked at him and said, "Why? What is it you want?" And the young man said, "I want to know what you know that made it easy to give this ruby away." And that's how recovery works. We give away what we have been freely given. And we at the Recovery Resource Center do that every day. We do our level best. And there are some people who go above and beyond. And so the first person I want to honor today is a man that his friends call Yoda behind his back. John Winslow has been a person in long-term recovery for a very long time. And from the time he got sober, he worked really, really hard to help people in the field. When he came to the Eastern Shore of Maryland, he came to be the director of the Dorchester County Addictions Program and founded the Dry Dock, which is a sober support service connected to the Dorchester Health Department. He is very active in the American Recovery Movement, and he is a consultant for the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. He is also my very dear friend. So it's with great pleasure I present the 2017 Recovery Angel Award to John Winslow.
Thank you. Thank you all.
We started doing these recovery award I'll be fine. We started the Recovery Angel Awards last year, and this year the planning committee for the breakfast decided we should honor a person and an agency organization who promoted recovery. And to present this next award, I would like to call up Tracy Gregory, who is our office manager. Tracy.
Wow, that's a lot of people, so forgive me if I'm nervous. This award is being presented to a program that really does help people get the skills and the behaviors that they need for long-term recovery. About 5 years ago, I had the benefit of being accepted into a drug treatment court. Today, I most definitely see it as a benefit and a blessing. However, the sick and suffering addict that I was 5 years ago definitely did not see it that way. I was scared and I was terrified. I had to change the thoughts and behaviors that had comforted me for so long. I could not believe that these people were going to make me get clean. That's honestly how I saw it at that point, because sometimes it felt like coercion rather than a choice. But the truth is that those of us that successfully complete a drug court program have a great launching pad. My experience in a drug treatment court brought me to the Recovery Resource Center as a volunteer. I am now the office manager. I have gone from unemployable to promotable, and I've actually been promoted twice. I am truly grateful for the opportunities that a drug court program provided me. So it is with great pleasure that I present the 2017 Recovery Angel Award to the Wycomico County Adult Drug Treatment Court.
Thank you. I'm so proud of her. Okay. Now, these next awards are long overdue. Long overdue. And I will tell you, in 1987, 3 very wonderful things happened. Our keynote speaker got sober. My younger son was born. And Pat Basha and Carl Porter had a really good idea. In 1987, Pat Basha and Carl Porter decided there needed to be a place for recovery people to go that was safe, warm, and welcoming. They put together a board of directors, and I have to tell you, everybody else has a plaque on the wall at RRC except 2 people. That's because they're still alive. Everyone else has gone to the meeting in the sky. But that felt really wrong to me as the organization embraces its 30th year in existence and its 27th year with open doors. So it is with great pleasure, gratitude, and honor that we recognize Pat Basha and Diane Loki, the 2 living members of the original Board of Directors of the Recovery Resource Center. Here we go. Look for it. Give her a smile.
Just in conclusion, this event takes a lot of coordination, cooperation, and sweat equity that goes into it. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank the entertainment such fools, Mickey Justice, Dick Morris, and Todd Smith. For our breakfast this morning, Chef Stuart Davis. Services representative here at Dove Point. And I think we're out of here with 5 minutes to spare. We were looking to finish at 9, is that right? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Have a good day.